What happens when a beloved friend star sits down for what should be a light-hearted interview only to face an unexpected interrogation that pushes her to her absolute breaking point? Today, we're diving into one of the most explosive moments in daytime television history where Courteney Cox found herself defending not just her career, but her entire legacy against relentless attacks. This wasn't just another celebrity interview gone wrong. This was a masterclass in how quickly things can spiral out of control when egos clash and boundaries are crossed. Make sure to subscribe and drop a comment below, because what you're about to witness will leave you questioning everything you thought you knew about live television. The atmosphere in the View studio was electric that morning as Courteney Cox settled into the guest chair, her signature smile radiating warmth as she prepared for what she believed would be a routine promotional appearance. The other hosts, Whoopi Goldberg, Sarah Haynes, and Alyssa Farah Griffin, welcomed her with genuine enthusiasm, their questions flowing naturally about her latest projects and upcoming ventures. The conversation had been sailing smoothly for nearly 10 minutes when Joy Behar, who had been unusually quiet, suddenly leaned forward with a look that could only be described as predatory. "You know, Courteney," Joy began, her voice carrying an edge that immediately shifted the energy in the room. "I have to ask about something that's been bothering me for years. Don't you think it's a little convenient how you've managed to stay so relevant while some of your friends' co-stars have struggled?" Courteney's smile faltered slightly, clearly caught off guard by the unexpected turn. "I'm sorry, what do you mean by convenient?" she asked, her voice remaining steady despite the obvious confusion in her eyes. Joy's expression hardened as she pressed on, seemingly oblivious to the uncomfortable tension now filling the studio. "Well, you've had multiple successful shows since Friends ended. You've stayed in the spotlight. You've managed to maintain this perfect image, while others from the cast have dealt with addiction, personal struggles, financial issues. It just seems like you've had it easier than the rest of them." The other hosts exchanged worried glances with Whoopi attempting to interject. "Joy, I think maybe we should focus on Courteney's new project," but Joy wasn't having it. "No, I think this is important," Joy continued, her voice growing more aggressive. "I mean, look at Matthew Perry's struggles. Look at the challenges some of the others have faced. Meanwhile, you're sitting here looking perfect, career intact, talking about your latest success. Don't you feel guilty about that?" Courteney's jaw tightened visibly as she processed what was happening. "Guilty about what exactly?" "About working hard. About making choices that have kept me grounded." "I'm not sure I understand what you're implying here." "I'm not implying anything," Joyce shot back, leaning even further forward. "I'm asking directly. Do you think you've benefited from being the safe choice while your co-stars took risks that didn't always pay off?" The studio audience had gone completely silent, the tension so thick it could be cut with a knife. Courteney's media training kicked in as she tried to maintain her composure, but there was a fire building behind her eyes that hadn't been there moments before. "Joy, I think you're mischaracterizing both me and my friends," Courteney replied, her voice now carrying a warning tone. "Each of us has faced our own challenges, made our own choices, and dealt with our own struggles. To suggest that I've somehow had an unfair advantage, or that I should feel guilty about my career choices is not only insulting to me, but it's disrespectful to them as well." Joyce scoffed audibly, shaking her head in apparent disbelief. "Oh, please spare me the diplomatic answer. We all know there's a hierarchy in Hollywood, and some people just know how to play the game better than others. You've obviously mastered that game." The accusation hung in the air like a toxic cloud, and Courteney's carefully maintained facade began to crack. Her hands gripped the arms of her chair as she stared directly at Joy, her voice dropping to a dangerously low register. "Are you seriously suggesting that my success is somehow undeserved? That I've manipulated my way through my career while my friends have suffered? Because if that's what you're saying, Joy, then we need to have a very different conversation, Joy. Either not recognizing the warning signs or choosing to ignore them, double down on her attack. I'm saying what everyone in this industry knows but won't say out loud. Some people get lucky, some people get protected, and some people know exactly which buttons to push to stay on top. You've been remarkably good at all three." That was the moment something shifted in Courteney Cox. The pleasant media-trained celebrity mask slipped away entirely, replaced by something raw and real that few people had ever seen. Her voice when she spoke again carried a strength and authority that commanded immediate attention. "You know what, Joy? I've been sitting here trying to be polite, trying to give you the benefit of the doubt, thinking maybe you were just having a bad day, or maybe you genuinely had some legitimate point you were trying to make. But I realize now that this isn't about legitimate questions or journalism or even entertainment. This is about you trying to tear down someone who's worked their entire life to build something meaningful." The other host sat frozen, unsure whether to intervene or let the moment play out. Whoopi's eyes darted between the two women, clearly calculating whether she needed to step in, while Sarah and Alyssa looked like they wanted to disappear entirely. Joy, perhaps realizing she had pushed too far, but unwilling to back down, attempted to maintain her aggressive stance. "I'm just asking the questions that need to be asked. Someone has to hold celebrities accountable for their privilege." "Accountable for what?" Courteney's voice rose slightly, though she maintained control. "For working consistently, for making smart career choices, for surrounding myself with good people, for staying out of tabloids, for keeping my personal life private. Which of these things exactly am I supposed to feel guilty about?" Joy's face wrinkled as she realized her attack wasn't having the intended effect. Instead of backing down gracefully, She decided to escalate further, seemingly determined to break Courtney's composure at any cost. Don't twist my words, Courtney. I'm talking about the reality of how this industry works. Some people get opportunities handed to them and others have to fight for scraps. You've been remarkably lucky in that regard. Lucky. Courtney's voice carried a dangerous edge now, her professional mask completely abandoned. You think my career has been about luck? Do you have any idea what it's like to audition for hundreds of roles before landing one that changes your life? Do you know what it's like to work 18 days for 10 years straight, memorizing pages of dialogue, hitting your marks perfectly, dealing with the pressure of millions of people watching your every move? Joy waved her hand dismissively, a gesture that visibly infuriated Courtney. Oh, boo-hoo. You got paid millions of dollars to read lines on a television show. Let's not pretend that's real hardship. The studio audience gasped audibly at Joy's callousness, and even the camera operator seemed to lean in closer, sensing they were witnessing something unprecedented. Courtney's eyes flashed with an intensity that made everyone in the studio sit up straighter. You know what, Joy? I've been in this business for over 30 years. I've worked with hundreds of people, from crew members to executives to fellow actors, and I've never not once encountered someone with such blatant disrespect for what we do. But more than that, I've never met someone so determined to tear down another person for absolutely no reason. Joy, perhaps sensing she was losing control of the narrative, but too prideful to retreat, made her biggest mistake yet. Maybe if you spent less time playing the victim and more time acknowledging your privilege, we could have an honest conversation here. That was the breaking point. Courtney's composure shattered completely as she stood up from her chair, her voice rising to a level that reverberated through the entire studio. Privilege? You want to talk about privilege? Let's talk about your privilege, Joy. You get to sit behind that desk every single day and attack people who can't defend themselves properly because they're trying to be professional. You get to make accusations without consequences, throw around judgments without basis, and tear down people's life work for your own entertainment. The other host looked absolutely stunned. Whoopi finally found her voice, attempting weakly to regain control. Ladies, maybe we should take a breath here. And no, Courtney cut her off, her attention laser-focused on Joy. I'm not done. You asked me questions. Now I'm gonna ask you some. When was the last time you created something meaningful? When was the last time you put yourself out there creatively and risked failure? When was the last time you built something instead of just tearing things down? Joy's mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water, clearly unprepared for this level of pushback. I'm a comedian, I comment on. You're a bully, Courtney interrupted, her voice cutting through Joy's attempted defense like a knife. You hide behind the guise of journalism or comedy or whatever you want to call it, but what you're really doing is using your platform to diminish other people. And the worst part is you seem to enjoy it. The silence in the studio was deafening. Even the crew members had stopped what they were doing to watch this unprecedented moment unfold. Joy, for perhaps the first time in her career on The View, appeared genuinely rattled. That's completely unfair. Joy stammered, her usual confidence nowhere to be found. I'm doing my job. I ask tough questions, that's what journalists do. Courtney let out a laugh that was anything but amused. Tough questions. Is that what you call this character assassination? Because let me tell you something about tough questions, Joy. Tough questions are based on facts. Tough questions have purpose beyond just causing pain. Tough questions come from a place of wanting to understand or illuminate something important. What you've been doing here today isn't journalism. It's just cruelty disguised as professionalism. Joy tried to regain her footing, but her voice lacked its earlier venom. I think you're overreacting to some legitimate concerns about stop, Courtney said firmly, holding up her hand. Just stop. There's nothing legitimate about what you've done here today. You came into this interview with an agenda to attack me, and when I didn't crumble the way you expected, you doubled down. But here's what you didn't count on, Joy. I didn't get where I am by being weak. I didn't survive in this industry for 3 decades by letting bullies push me around. The camera captured every nuance of Courtney's expression. As she continued, her voice now steady and controlled, but filled with an unmistakable power. You want to know what real privilege looks like? Real privilege is being able to sit in judgment of others without ever having to put yourself on the line. Real privilege is having a platform where you can say whatever you want without consequences. Real privilege is never having to create anything yourself while feeling entitled to destroy what others have built. Joy made one last desperate attempt to regain control of the situation. I think you're taking this far too personally. This is just television, it's just conversation. No, Joy, Courtney replied, her voice now carrying the weight of years of experience and hard-earned wisdom. This isn't just television. This isn't just conversation. This is you using your position to try to humiliate someone for your own entertainment. This is you attempting to diminish decades of hard work with unfounded accusations and petty jealousy. And most importantly, this is you showing everyone watching exactly who you really are when you think you can get away with it. The studio had become a pressure cooker, and everyone could feel it was about to explode completely. Joy, now visibly shaken, but still clinging to her combative stance, made what would prove to be her final and most catastrophic error. You know what, Courtney? Maybe the reason you're so defensive is because deep down, you know I'm right. Maybe you know that your success isn't really about talent. The words hung in the air like a death sentence. The collective intake of breath from the audience was audible, and even the seasoned camera operators seemed stunned by the sheer audacity of Joy's statement. Courtney stood motionless for a moment, staring at Joy with an expression that could only be described as disbelief mixed with pure fury. When Courtney finally spoke, her voice was quiet, controlled, and more terrifying than any scream could have been. "Did you just question my talent? Did you just sit there on national television and suggest that 30 years of work, 10 years of friends, multiple successful projects, countless professional relationships, and the respect of my peers is all just some kind of fluke?" Joy, perhaps finally realizing she had crossed a line from which there was no return, tried weakly to backtrack. "I didn't mean to suggest." "Oh no, you meant exactly what you said," Courtney interrupted, her voice gaining strength with each word. "Because that's who you are, isn't it, Joy? That's your brand. Tear people down. Question their worth. Make them feel small so you can feel big. But here's what you don't understand, and what you never will understand. Talent isn't something you can fake for 30 years. Success built on nothing doesn't last 3 decades. And respect from your peers isn't something you can buy or manipulate your way into." The other host sat in stunned silence, with Whoopi looking like she wanted to disappear entirely and Sarah actually covering her face with her hands. The audience was completely captivated, witnessing what was clearly going to go down as one of the most explosive moments in daytime television history. Courtney continued, her voice now building to a crescendo that commanded the attention of everyone in the studio. "You want to know about my talent, Joy? My talent is showing up every single day and doing the work. My talent is treating every person on every set with respect and professionalism. My talent is learning my lines, hitting my marks, finding the truth in every character I play, and making millions of people around the world feel something real. That's talent, Joy. That's what real talent looks like." Joy attempted one more feeble response. "I just think people should be more honest about honest." Courtney's voice exploded with a force that made everyone in the studio jump. "You want to talk about honesty? Let's be honest about what this really is. This isn't about my career or my success or anything related to legitimate journalism. This is about you being threatened by someone who's built something lasting while you've spent your career tearing things down. This is about your own insecurities manifesting as attacks on people who represent everything you wish you could be but never will be." The camera captured every devastating word as Courtney delivered what could only be described as a masterclass in righteous anger. "You sit behind that desk every day, safe in your little bubble, protected by your producers and your lawyers and your platform, throwing stones at people who are actually out there creating, building, contributing something positive to the world. And when someone finally stands up to you, when someone finally calls you out for what you really are, you act shocked and offended." Joy's face had gone completely pale, and for the first time since the interview began, she appeared truly speechless. The studio was so quiet that the hum of the cameras seemed deafeningly loud. Courtney took a step closer to the desk, her presence now dominating the entire space. "But here's the most honest thing I can tell you, Joy. Your opinion of me, your attacks on my character, your attempts to diminish my work, they mean absolutely nothing to me. Because I know who I am, I know what I've accomplished. I know the relationships I've built, the lives I've touched, the work I've done, and no amount of small-minded, petty attacks from someone like you will ever change that." The silence stretched on for what felt like an eternity before Courtney delivered her final devastating blow. "What's really sad here, Joy, is that you had the opportunity to have a real conversation with someone who's been in this business for 3 decades. You could have asked about the craft, about the challenges, about the evolution of television, about working with incredible people, about the joy of creating something that brings happiness to millions of people. Instead, you chose to reveal exactly who you are, and now everyone watching knows it too." With that, Courtney picked up her purse, looked directly into the camera, and spoke with a dignity that stood in stark contrast to everything that had just transpired. "To anyone watching who's ever been attacked for their success, who's ever been made to feel guilty for working hard and achieving their dreams, don't let anyone dim your light. Don't let bullies make you apologize for being excellent." She turned back to Joy one final time, her voice calm and clear. "And Joy, the next time you want to attack someone's life work on national television, maybe make sure you're talking to someone who doesn't have the strength to fight back, because today you picked the wrong person." Courtney walked off the set with her head held high, leaving behind a studio full of stunned faces and one very humbled talk show host who had just learned what happens when you underestimate the power of someone who spent 30 years proving themselves in one of the toughest industries in the world. That's a wrap on this incredible story of standing up to bullies and defending your worth. What did you think of Courtney's response to Joy's attacks? Was she justified in erupting the way she did? Drop your thoughts in the comments below and make sure to subscribe for more explosive celebrity moments that you won't see anywhere.